Welcome, everyone, to another episode of What Exit Jersey Stories. I'm your host, Nick Franco. Tonight, Pete can't join us, but I am excited by who can join us. Tonight, we are joined by Ruth and Ed Ayers, my cousins, and some of the most interesting people you are going to know, and fellow Jerseyans.
That's right.
So, welcome.
How
are you? How are you doing tonight?
Doing good. We're so psyched to be on your show. Of course, it took you a long time to invite us. I don't know.
Sorry.
I mean, I don't want to be complaining or anything. But
This is the only show where you need to have exact change to get on it.
yeah.
Well, besides being my cousins, Ruth and Ed, you've had a very cool lifetime in New Jersey and also out of Jersey and coming back.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, you guys, where we started actually is Ruth started at the upper end of Bergen County and Ed started at the lower end of Bergen County.
That's
Yes, and he's been at the bottom ever since.
right.
I know that probably means something really bad, but
No.
it's intended that way.
No. Actually, from where you're from, Ed, Lyndhurst, it's a very interesting area. Like, do you want to talk a little bit about growing up in Lyndhurst? And I'll throw a couple of tidbits out on Lyndhurst that I dug up.
Well, sure. When I was growing up, there was no stadium. It was all just swamps and landfills. So that was my familiar. We didn't have zip codes. We had aromas.
And I remember a couple of the aromas once you head down the turnpike there. So.
Yes, we did. Yeah, that's what New Jersey used to be known for that. But it's actually that's only a very small portion of the state.
True.
The rest of it is farmland and suburbs.
Correct.
So he used to smoke punks in the Meadowland.
Really?
Yeah. They used to. Do you know what a punk is?
Yeah. They're the things that sticking out like kind of like a reed with that thing at the end. I don't know what you would call that.
With a long tail coming out of it or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we would light them up and smoke them and pretend we were smoking cigarettes, as I recall.
Really?
They would ice skate on toxic waste. It was good.
Yeah, there was a place called the Brickyard where they used to make bricks during the war, and it was a favorite dumping ground for all of the illegal dumpers.
Oh.
When that would freeze, we'd go ice skating on it, which explains a lot.
I was going to say that no, it didn't like do a quick thaw for anyone while they were skating, right?
It would. Sometimes people wouldn't fall all the way in, but sometimes the ice wouldn't be quite hard enough, and chemicals have a higher freezing point, and somebody's leg would go in or something like that, and that explains the brain damage.
But it's funny you actually bring up as far as the Brickyard and as far as some of the wartime. Did you know about back in what was it 17? Yeah, 17. The Kingsland explosion.
I've heard of it, but I'm not even old enough. I'm not that old, Nicholas.
No, I know you're not that old, but I was wondering if growing up in that area, if people ever talked about it or Tessie McNamara?
No, it didn't come up very often. It was one of those things that they would rather keep to themselves.
Oh, okay.
The train station was the Kingsland train station.
Yes. Yeah, and the train station is still there.
Yes, it is. Yeah, they haven't done much to improve it either.
Now, is that part of the Pascack Valley line, or is that part of because you're closer to Secaucus at that point?
No, it was the Pascack Valley line because I used to take it, and then it would take you into Jersey City, I think, and then you would take the path if you were. I worked in downtown New York.
Yeah.
Before they broke ground for the World Trade Center, I might add.
But getting back to your original question is, I was like a turnpike guy, and she was Parkway guy.
I was a Parkway.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was gonna say like the Turnpike is closer to Southern Bergen County, and then Hudson County, Essex, that area like more butts the Turnpike there.
Yeah, we were from different worlds in New Jersey, and we met at what was then known as the Bergen Evening Record. So
Oh wow!
in Hackensack, yeah.
Oh
And-
yeah, I remember it well.
Yeah, and Eddie had an after school job. He was 16, 7. I don't know how old.
17.
17, and he was on like the after school job program or something, and he worked as a printer's apprentice on the floor of the Bergen Evening Record. And remember, this is when and this is when there was hot type,
Yes.
right? And I got a job. I was an absolute incorrigible child and didn't want to work days, and I got a night job as a proofreader, and so he would be getting off work as I was getting on work. So that's how we saw each other in the night.
We just
And I thought he was so cute. And the proofreaders were so picture all the presses, right, all around, and the proofreaders were in a glass, almost like a cone of silence. It was like a glass encaged place that you couldn't hear the presses, and that's where you sit and proofread what they call the galleys, as you were coming down. But mostly I just peeled my eyes for this cute guy. I was a slacker employee, but I really just thought he was the cutest. And then I couldn't get
right, of course.
He was, and I couldn't get his attention. So there was this woman. I was in the ladies' room, and one of the other workers said, "Oh, Amy Brown. Don't ever tell her anything because she's the biggest gossip in the whole company and all this."
Oh, okay.
Next time I was in the ladies' room and Amy Brown came in.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Amy, I'm going to tell you something, but you cannot tell a soul. You swore to secrecy, right?" And I said, "I really like that guy who's at the and I described him and everything. And I didn't know his name. I'm in love with him. I don't know his name.
Oh,
Know his name." And Amy says, "Oh, you mean Eddie? That's Eddie." And I said, "Yes."
I was the coffee guy. I was the kid that they sent out for coffee. I would have to,
okay.
They have a name for people.
Gopher.
Gophers, yes.
He was the coffee gopher. So anyway, I laid it on her, and sure enough, next day I come to work and I pass where Eddie works, and he's all red as a beet, and he looks at me like this. He waves at me with his pinky, and I was like, "Yes, Amy Brown, I love you."
The plan worked.
Yes. Well, I had to stalk him.
There you go.
I had to stalk him. So that was our sort of Jersey coming together.
That's just how we came
how
together.
we met.
But,
Yeah.
but all of those jobs were just jobs. I knew that even back then. I knew I wanted to be in the music business and in show business, and that's what I was planning for. That was just a job to make some money so I could get myself a better set of drums.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, yes. As a matter of fact, the first time he asked me on a date, when I finally stalked him to walk to the bus stop with him, he asked me on a date, but he said, "But first you have to know that I can't, I don't want no girlfriend can get in the way of my music career."
Oh.
So he laid down
I laid down the ground rules.
He laid down the ground rules from the day one. And I would have said anything, I would have said yes to anything that he wanted to say, because I just wanted to get a date with him. And then he makes a date with me. Now, remember, I'm up in Montvale. That's almost Nyack, right?
You're on the border of New York State, basically.
Of New York State.
What exit again? 172, right?
172. And he asked me on a date, everything else. We set the date for the date. He doesn't have a freaking car on the night of the date.
Now, how does that work?
I don't know what kind of language you can use on this podcast, but how's that for BALLS?
You're allowed, by the way. You're allowed.
Well,
But so the question is, how does this work? How did Ed down
well,
at 16W on the Turnpike get to 172 on the Parkway?
what really happened is I had made arrangements to
Nobody
borrow.
cares what really happened.
To
The way I
borrow-
told it was funnier.
Yeah, to borrow a friend's car, and
Mm.
he was supposed to give me the car. And
Okay.
but except that didn't happen, so I wound up bringing him with me. And
Oh, nothing like a third wheel on a first date.
but that's so.
And so, I go to the door and there's two guys there. So it was like so weird. And we went out, but we didn't really go out because we're like snowing and we're kids, you don't really go anywhere. We just drove around and stuff like that. And went to the diner, the Park Ridge Diner. And then
Oh wow, yeah.
and
Actually, David and I used to go there all the time.
It's Jersey.
we
That's what
drove
you do. You go-
around, smoked a joint, and then went to the diner. That was the date. It was very elegant. And the first compliment my future husband gave me was, I like a girl who's not afraid to eat in front of me,
Oh.
because I was woofing down the cheeseburger,
Oh, nice.
So I got cred for basically being a gavone and shoving the camera.
Do girls still do that? Do they still, not eat in front of their date the first time, or just?
I don't know. For me, like, when I went out on my first date with Tracy, it was just like, we made jokes about the food, but it was just like, oh, what would you like to eat? Yeah, I was.
Yeah, but you were older. We were like we were kids.
I know. Yeah, like
Children.
yeah.
You were children. But anyway, that's how we got started. So what else you want to ask us, cousin Nicholas?
Well, here's a question for Eddie. Okay, you got your drums there.
Mm-hmm.
Who were your influences as far as for drummers? Like, what got you into drumming and wanting to be a musician?
As far back as I can remember, I was always enamored of show business. And when I was a little kid, with everybody watching the Ed Sullivan Show on Sunday night, I would watch all these performers, and I would say to myself, that's what I want to do. And but coming from a blue collar background, I had to turn it into something that was more in terms of just having a steady paycheck. So I thought that if I played drums, I would get a steady paycheck being in a band, instead of just trying to be some kind of a rock and roll idol or something. But my influences as a drummer were, of course, everybody in those days liked Ringo Starr. I couldn't, I didn't think much of his drumming in those days. I've since come around to appreciating him, but I was always into, my favorite drummer of all time was Buddy Rich, who was this.
One of the most incredible drummers of like all time
that ever lived. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so my style was, I began being attracted to the bigger band sound and all of that. And to this day, I still love that kind of music. And I like the more modern takes on it too. There's people out there doing very interesting work with big bands, not just doing the stuff from the 40s and all of that.
Right. Ruth. Now, okay, here Ed's got the drums, like he's going to do a band. How did you get involved? I understand that you got involved with the band.
Now, here's how I got involved. So we were married about 5 years. We're about 5 years into our marriage, and he would play with bands and go around playing with bands and clubs and this and that. And I would have jobs. I would take secretarial jobs. I would take waitress jobs, whatever. And it was kind of a drag, because I'd be working when he wasn't, and vice versa. And one night he was playing with a band at a place like a hotel or something, and I was somewhat overserved at the bar. I had a few too many cocktails, and I was so I was really brave, and I got up and sang with the band, and was emoting and carrying on, stuff like that. And it turns out that the guy who was in the band with Eddie was also a manager of a lot of bands. bands, like a lot of club bands.
Oh, okay.
So he said, "Oh, your wife is great." Like it was. I don't think he thought my singing was great because I don't know what the hell I sang or how I sounded, but I certainly was very pretty girl in those days, and so that was half the battle. And then also, very outgoing and whatever, right? So he said, "Why don't you put a band together with your wife? Because if you have a girl in the band, you get more work." So I was there to be the girl in the band, so they got more work.
Now, what was the band name?
Well, the first band we had, we named it Celebration.
Okay.
Then we had, and then the next iteration was where I got up from behind the drums and I went up front with Ruth. And we became a comedy team.
But the way that happened is really very funny. We were with the band, the Celebration band, right? And there was a girl singer with me. So there was two girls up front, and the girl singer with me was a spectacular, like coloratura arranged soprano high singer, right?
Oh, wow.
She carried a lot of the leads, right? And I was the cute girl with the tambourine and the jokes. And I was a very good harmonizer. I have very good ears. So that was the band. She gets sick on the opening night in Virginia Beach.
Oh.
In those days, the opening night was when the agent and the club owner would come to see the act, and they could just send you home if they didn't like you. Forget you had a contract or anything, right?
Meaningless.
It was meaningless. So, so opening night, we're going to be judged, and our lead singer, who has the whole first half of the opening medley.
Oh.
And so I said to him, "Ain't no way I'm going to go up there by myself." So we got the bass player to get on the drums, and I pulled Eddie up front with me. And then basically what I did with him for the whole show was boss him around and tell him what to do. So it was like, no, seriously.
Surprise.
Yeah. Because we had to fill 40 minutes. So it was like, we did some kind of an opening. And then I was like, Eddie, whenever we're at home and I'm half ready to fall asleep at night, you do a Richard Nixon impression, but you never do it on stage. Do it now. This kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
Do this, do this, do this. Then I would tell the band, "Oh, we're going to have I told the band, "Oh, we're going to have a dance contest. Play a riff for dance contest." And the band started boom, 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 and I started pulling, and this is like on a Tuesday night in a club. It's all like traveling screwdriver salesmen and stuff, So I had I brought them up and made believe it was a dance contest. And it was crazy. And I kept thinking, Jesus, please let this 40 minutes be up pretty soon.
We thought we were fired.
We thought we were fired for sure. For sure. When it was over, the agent came up and said, "I didn't know you were a husband and wife comedy team. This was great." And, and so that's how it got started. And then we became an actual husband and wife comedy team. And I think, Eddie, the way you might describe it is like, picture someone, namely Eddie, who's a great musician, a spectacular singer, I might add. He has a wonderful singing voice. He can a great performer and everything else. And picture he goes to do a gig and his wife comes to work with him. And starts questioning everything he's doing. And you know what I mean? It was like, that was the act, kind of. You know what I mean? It was, yes, I sang. Yes, I did jokes. Yes, I did comedy. But the overall theme or pretense or whatever was, here's this poor guy trying to get his show get through his show. And the wife has a million. Like we used to do a bit, the song, "The Way You Do, the Things You Do," right?
Yes.
So Eddie would start the song, right? And then I would interrupt and say, "This is not in the, it's not in the right tempo."
There'd always be something wrong.
There'd be something wrong. It wasn't in the right tempo. And then we'd go through all these different tempos, and some of them were really funny. So there would be like a Latin tempo we'd do it in, and there would be a funk tempo that we would do, on and on and on. And of course, the gag ends with going back to the original tempo, which I now think is perfect. And, stuff like that. So we used to do, and people liked it. And we were very, very different for the time. or anybody's time for that.
Well, there were no, we're from the baby boom generation, and
Right.
and marriage took a real hit during that generation.
Yeah.
Most people weren't getting married.
And we were married long. So you picture, we're going up on stage. We're still in our late 20s, right? We look young.
And we've already
been married 10 years.
Wow.
So jokes we're doing are like better for a 40-year-old audience that's been together. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. You're actually you're performing for an older audience.
Well, we weren't necessarily, but eventually we found our audience. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? Eventually that all sort of.
Okay.
But it was a lot of fun. But along the way, we had some, Jersey highlights.
Oh yeah. We when we spent most of our time on the road, and we were traveling to all of these great metropolises like Columbus, Ohio, and Camden, Arkansas, and places, all kinds of weird places like that. And we even drove across country and played in Reno. We drove across country in the desert heat.
Oh, wow.
In a van without any air conditioning.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you made it back, so that's
but it was that Reno, Las Vegas gambling environment, that kind of a thing, and it's the strangest people you see out there. It's like you get down to breakfast in the morning and there's 4 Elvis Presley impersonators sitting at the table.
Oh wow.
And,
there used to be one over here at do you guys remember on Essex Street, the Arena Diner?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
We went there for corn muffins. It was near the record.
Yeah, unfortunately, the arena is closed and gone now.
But whatever.
Yeah, the record's now gone. Yeah,
we closed everything. We closed everything we ever did. I think.
I'm not sure if the Ling is still there though. I don't know. Was that there when you guys were there? The USS Ling?
Yeah, I think so.
The submarine.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I don't know if my memory is fuzzy on that. I don't know if that came a few years later or what.
Oh, okay. It might have been a couple of years later, like when they decommissioned it, and it became basically a naval museum there in Hackensack, right next to the record and the Heritage Diner.
Exactly. So we used to spend 9 months a year away from home.
Wow.
We had an apartment that we basically just kind of housed our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time we were living in hotels and doing, we're playing in very often the typical gig would be playing in a Ramada Inn lounge somewhere. And
got it.
And we would live in the hotel while we were there. We worked 6 nights a week, which is something it's very difficult to do anymore.
No, it's impossible. Nobody does it.
Of course, the nightclub business isn't what it used to be.
Oh no.
The way people get their entertainment has changed, but it was a very strange way to live. And you'd come into places that the agent would tell you, I got you booked in Little Rock, Arkansas, and you'd think, oh well, not exactly New York City, but at least it's a capital city. At least it's you've heard of it, and we would get booked in all kinds of.
It wouldn't be Little Rock. It would be some little tin town run by a single person who was corrupt. And like crazy.
As the weeks went by, you would be talking with the agent, and then he'd say he'd honor up to you and say, well, it's not quite in Little Rock.
Yeah.
It's outside of Little Rock. And then the next week it would be about 20 miles outside of Little Rock. And the next week, by the time you're finished, you're in Camden, Arkansas.
I didn't know they had a Camden. It's like I thought that was only Jersey.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I remember one time talking about Jersey on the road, and I remember one time when we were driving to Texas, stopping to get gas, and the guy saw my plates and he asked me if I was a Jersey jerk.
A Jersey jerk?
What
does that mean?
I don't think it was a compliment.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if this was like some kind of lingo. It's like a Jersey. Oh, you work in a what you call it, like a soda fountain or something, you know, like, oh, you're one of those Jersey jerks, you know.
Soda jerk, yeah.
But
No.
our lives became more Jersey-fied when we came off the road. So when we decided to not be on the road anymore, we reinvented ourselves. Instead of being a musical comedy act with a band, we became actual stand-ups with no, just us.
With just the two of us.
Yeah. That was like in the early 80s. And that's when, our activities became more eclectic and definitely more Jersey in some ways. We were.
Well, you guys, you did a lot of like impression type, like team impression type things, right? Like, didn't you do George Burns and Gracie Allen?
Yes, we did. Yes.
George. George, you're so silly.
In fact, I think that's the first thing I saw you actually perform, and that was on Channel 9, WOR.
Yeah. Oh, well, that was on Joe Franklin.
It was on Joe Franklin.
Yeah, we were on the amazingly iconic and strange Joe Franklin show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
He was the strangest cat. I remember watching him as a young girl, and it was called Joe Franklin's Memory Lane. And he would have like silent film actors on, and he's still working by the time I'm 30 or whatever, 28 or whatever. And
he was on the air.
Yeah, and for some reason he loved that we did Burns and Allen, and he was about memory lane, so he had us on, to do Burns and Allen. But he also had Jermaine Jackson on, who was putting that in. I mean, the matchup was wild.
And another couple who also did George Burns and Gracie Allen.
Did you have like a Burns and Allen off, or like a
burn off? Yes,
yes, a burn off.
It was so wild, but we also did as this husband and wife comedy team now that we are. We also did a cable, one of the first access cable shows, I think. When cable first came in, but it wasn't anything like it is today. And every cable company had to give people access, like they had to give away access time for shows. And most of these shows, right? And most of these shows were like really local announcements, whatever. But we did an actual show. We did a talk show called Airs Time. And we did all sorts of crazy things, but we were known the most during our short run for honeymooners trivia.
Excellent.
Because we, at the time, we sort of, and Eddie especially, were like the most crazed honeymooners addicts. And the way you have today with the, when you go to Comic-Con and you have people that are crazy about this show, and that we were like that for the honeymooners, only you didn't have those outlets. And we used to listen to honeymooners. We would tape on a regular audio tape. We would tape the shows, the honeymooner shows.
Oh, okay.
What was it on? Channel 11?
Yep, PIX.
WPIX. We would tape the shows. And this way, when we went on the road and we're in this, hot van, we would play the shows, on audio tape. We would listen to it on audio. This was our entertainment, and so.
Yeah, we didn't have big stereos.
No, we had nothing.
This van basically had 4 tires and some.
Yeah, this wasn't a band. It was a plumber's van, Yeah. And what happened was, so we did this. We got the airtime before we even knew what the show was going to be about. Right?
Yeah. So we were doing this because we were doing this honeymooners trivia segment every week. People would call in. And,
people dug it. I mean, we had no promotion. It's on the Savino network. Who the hell?
What was the Savino network? Like you sent that to me. I'm like, I had never heard of that. And of course, every time I try to look up, it's all the political stuff from more recent times.
Well, it was these two brothers that actually, when cable was coming in, they were politically connected, so they wound up getting their own little station.
Ah, okay.
And we would so our first opportunity to be on television doing our act was at this little place, this little town. It only went out to about 8 or 9 different towns.
But with those 8 or 9 different towns, it's so funny how word of mouth worked, because especially about the honeymooners trivia, we would have honeymooners trivia on every show, but we'd have guests, crazy ass guests, let me tell you. But we would have guests. Yeah, like we set it up like a Tonight Show thing, but there were people that would be like in local bars that would tune it in for the honeymooners trivia and be calling in answers to the trivia, because we gave away prizes. But the prizes were lame, like a free pizza from Lovey's Pizza in Hasbrook Heights, and
Oh wow, Lovey's Pizza. Wow, I didn't know they went back that. You're like,
yeah,
that's right. That's the 80s. Yeah.
But it became kind of like a thing. And what happened was, remember, so we found out that there were these guys who wrote a book about the honeymooners. And so we called them and we had them on. And that was first of all, it was a great show because it was so wild, you know.
And they were the two guys that started, the honeymooners was taken off the air at this time. So
okay.
This campaign to bring them back on. And that's why these guys wrote the book. So they wound up organizing these conventions. Like today, they have Trekkie conventions and things like that. But what they did is they organized the Honeymooners Convention.
Right, and they called their organization RALPH, the Royal Association for the Longevity and Preservation of the Honeymooners. And they were blown away that this young couple was A, so interested in the honeymooners, and B, could do things from the show. So like there's an episode where Norton is teaching Ralph how to do something called the Hucklebuck. Now that was a real song in the 50s. And we actually did like a bit on it. You know what I mean? And these guys were like, oh my God, we're going to have a convention out at CW Post College and, you know, whatever. So we wound up doing these things and meeting a lot of the original cast members from the show.
Oh my God, really?
Yes. And it was like we were sort of semi-famous in the world of people who like the honeymooners, believe it or not, you know.
And I wound up doing the commercial.
Yeah, and then someone later on, somebody came out with a game board game of the honeymooners, and they called these guys because they knew they were the experts. And these guys said, don't go because at that time Jackie Gleason was alive.
Correct.
And he had stipulations for what kind of actor could play Ralph on the commercial. He didn't want anyone fat. He didn't want all these things. And so they called these guys from this organization and they said, go no further than Ed Ayers. Ed Ayers is the guy you want to play Ralph in your commercial. And so he did. But
the reason they knew I could do it is because one of the things we did at the convention is we did an audience participation bit where we taught people from the audience how to execute the perfect bang zoom. Remember?
Oh, really?
Zoom, you know.
So how do you execute the perfect bang zoom?
I will get off camera. I will let Eddie just.
Oh, I haven't done this since the 80s. I don't know if I can remember. Let's see. First of all, there's the wind up. You know, the Then there's the swinging around and the hitting the fist meets this, and then
the fist, and then you had to make the perfect arc to go to the moon.
Yes. So you'd have maybe 8, 9, 10 people on stage all going through these motions like this, the bang zoom. And that kind of told these two guys who organized it that I could do Gleason. But so Gleason had these standards, as Ruth said, that he wouldn't allow anybody fat or a look-alike or someone like that. So they called me in. They were desperate, and they called me in for an audition, and I got the part. And
wow!
The commercial ran nationally for about 6 months or so. And
they did the commercial on the original set from the honeymooners. So like,
oh my God! Wow!
There had been a bit in one of the episodes where they pull out Ralph's pants, and they're really big pants, you know, and there's a joke around it. Those pants were in the set of drawers, still in the drawers. I mean, if you want to describe in today's vernacular of all the various, Comic-Con fan zine things that would make someone excited, I'm sure there's an analogy to that. You know what I mean? Like if you found whatever, pick it,
Right.
Like,
It's basically it's an original costume / prop from the show. You're talking about actual sitcom history.
Yes,
he actually he made a commercial and experienced sitcom history, and his audition had to be approved by Jackie Gleason himself.
That's incredible.
Isn't that wild?
And you know what I found inside one of the drawers of that great dresser that they used to have there? A pair of size 52 boxer shorts.
52. Wow.
Yeah. So they were real Ralph Cramden.
It was real.
Or should I say humana?
Yeah. So so that when we went down in honeymooners history there with the conventions and things. We met Joyce Randolph a couple of times and a lot. Do you remember the episode with Burt Wiedemeyer when they go over to his house and he's got this va-va-voom wife and they're all
the dinner party there. Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Yeah, Rita Wiedemeyer. And the thing is, these guys, the guys we met on our show, they could find these people, and so they found the actress who played Rita Wiedemeyer, and we worked with her. They had Art Carney's son come to the thing, so it was like this. And it was such a surprise to us because it was like, who would have thought it was not on our bingo card,
My little
Eddie's obsession, because he was always obsessed with, and Eddie learned a lot of his comedy timing, I think, from the honeymooners and stuff like that. So yeah, it was
excellent.
Cool.
And truthfully, you look back at like some of those shows, and you wouldn't have many of what we have now without that foundation of they still use a lot of that, like between the cameras, the way that the way the thing was shot. That was that a 3-camera or is that a single?
They did something. Actually, they did. I think it was a 3-camera show.
Okay, it was.
They also were doing something at the same time. They were feeding it right into a film camera, and they
Kinescope, right?
Yeah, Kinescope. Yeah, that's what it
was. Okay, Kinescope.
Yeah.
And Gleason was an innovator.
Yeah,
and so they were one of the first live shows that also had, that's why you have those 36 episodes that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Because Gleason at that time, because remember, we're talking early 50s.
39 episodes.
What did I say?
You said 36.
No, I said 39.
You got to prove it.
I was going to say we'll look back on the video and the audio, and we'll find out.
Right.
But no, that's amazing. Like again, like you said, you got your timing, like a bit of your like timing from that, and just being much a fan led to being Ralph Cramden in the commercial.
Another thing is he was fat and he was popular. And here I was fat and I wanted to be popular.
Well, wait a minute, you're jumping ahead. Eddie was an overweight child.
Okay.
Well, and so Jackie Gleason was aspirational to him because he was overweight and he was popular and he was famous. But by the time I met Eddie, he was not overweight. He was very skinny.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Because here I am telling you that Gleason didn't want anyone fat, and then Eddie's saying he was fat. So I'm trying to keep Eddie in clarity.
And I'm sitting down because they can't tell how fat I am.
No, but trying to keep this conversation clear. My natural editor is taking over.
Yeah. So anyway, I had this. It's one of these crazy things that, here you are. You're just this little kid from a blue collar factory town in New Jersey, and here I am as a 20 some odd year old rubbing elbows with Jackie Gleason. It's just one of those crazy things where being in show business can take you into places where you just never thought you'd ever wind up.
Excellent. Like now, I know also besides Joe Franklin and and this, this show with the honeymooners, you also did some things on WOR itself, didn't you? Like
we did a commercial for that ran forever. I think it was it $1 Million Movie or something? Yeah.
$1 Million
Right.
movie,
So there was a casting call went out, and they needed a team to do this commercial. So they put out a casting call for teams, but most of the people who showed up were just the casting agent just got an actor and an actress together to do the script. They weren't
a true team. Yeah.
No, they weren't a true team. And the conceit of the commercial was that it was two movie stars at an award show giving an award to the $1 Million Movie, right? So it was that.
Mm-hmm.
And the characters were suspiciously like Jack Nicholson.
No, we made them that way. Wait a minute. Let me tell the story right. I want to tell the story right, because you will take away some of the part that was really good. They have a script, right? We read the script. It's lame. It's so lame. And so we made it. It was just like a generic lady movie star and man movie star. They didn't give you any other direction. And I said, remember, it's the 80s. And I said, why don't we make it like Joan Collins dynasty kind of person?
Right.
Jack Nicholson. And we went and then we added jokes that they didn't have in the script.
They wound up using some of them.
Which they used. So we wound up doing the audition. I mean, it wasn't even close, as far as the audition was concerned, because we were an actual team. We had a point of view. We had characters established that were not indicated in the script. And then that's how we did it. And it ran for fracking ever. It really did. It ran.
I was going to say, I just remember like on Channel 9, it's like, oh, wait, there they are. It's just like so many times. Like, I'm trying to think. Did they also, did they run your guys' commercial during like the Thanksgiving marathons too? I know that this is a little off, but I remember just like watching. Yeah, we'd be up.
It showed up everywhere. It showed up freaking everywhere, Nick. It was like I'd get a call a year later, whatever. I'd get a call, and we didn't get residuals. We had a buyout. We got
okay. So
if we had residuals, we would have made more money, but it was a buyout, and for us at that time, that was good. We're kids, and it also got me into my next profession, which was advertising, because the ad agency was there for the shoot all night long. It was a night shoot, and and I remember, just watching them I'm talent. So I'm in a separate place, with the makeup ladies and whatever, but I'm watching those guys. And I thought, I could do that. I could do what they're doing.
Yeah. You could hang around in the middle of the night watching somebody else work as good as anybody else.
Yeah. Well, but also because we had also structured the commercial better than they did. And also because I thought it was a very interesting business. So I wound up, this is not exactly, chronologically perfect for our tales to you, Nick, but eventually I wound up working at my first advertising agency and had a long and successful career in the advertising business. But it was that commercial for WOR that really, sparked me about the advertising business. And later on in my career, I actually worked for the agency that had done that commercial.
Oh, wow. So the agency that, hired you guys for that commercial, correct, you wound up working later.
Another capacity.
Yeah, I went to work for them in another, but I mean, it was so, life is wild,
Yeah. So, what's really interesting too is how being a comedy team, the kind of work that it takes. It's a very different thing than just being a single stand-up.
Right.
That's why you don't see teams around much anymore. But we went so far with it, and then we kind of got discouraged and we stopped for a while. And she was working in the ad business. And tell them about Tommy Smothers.
Oh, right. So I'm working in the ad business, and I have some friends, and we go out. And but Eddie and I were talking about, the thing about our act at that point, it was like the mystery that got away. Like, we never got it perfect at that point in time. Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't so much that we were dedicated to having a full career in it, but we really wanted to solve the creative puzzle that we hadn't solved yet about what our husband and wife team should be about. And so we were back to thinking about it, if you know what I mean. And I go out for drinks with an advertising friend, and across the room, Tommy and Dickie Smothers are
Oh, wow.
Club. They were in town to do a show. And Tommy has the eyes for my girlfriend. He's like giving her the good eye, at the thing. So he comes over to talk to her, and she, Miss Bubbly Blonde, she says, my friend is also in a comedy team, and I'm like, shh,
Oh.
and interesting, and he was very interested in it. So I took him through the whole thing, and I told him about the history of it and everything else. And he said, you've got to put the music back in. He said, you've got to put the music back in. And that's how when we ended our time working as a comedy, we went back to the drawing board and did one more show where we solved the puzzle and put the music in and used it differently, and had a different relationship. I did not break the third wall, which I used to always do. So only Eddie could break the third wall, not me.
She always looked at me, in other words.
Yeah, I never looked at the audience.
Looking at the audience.
We solved so many particulars of a great comedy team for us. And it came from Tommy Smothers.
But you know what it wound up being? It wound up being like a combination of Burns and Allen and the Smothers Brothers.
Yes, it was. It was a combination of Burns and Allen and the Smothers Brothers. Now, Gracie Allen was known for being like ditzy, right?
Right. Yeah, that was the act. Yeah.
Which wasn't me. So think of it as Burns and Allen if Gracie was neurotic and obsessive.
Oh.
You know what I mean? A more modern,
Mm-hmm.
a neurotic and obsessive and, bossy. Yeah, like a girl boss, and everything else. But also with the Smothers Brothers, music that gets interrupted.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I remember the Smothers Brothers show. Yeah.
Yeah.
In other words, you start a song, but I would never get to finish it.
Yeah.
There would always be something wrong, something that she could pick on.
And one of my favorite ones was, so I try to get him to. I love this song, and it always makes me cry. This song from Brigadoon, which has nothing.
Oh wow, Brigadoon. Yeah.
Nothing to do with Eddie's interest. He never cared about Broadway, anything else. But I love it. It's called "The Heather on the Hill." The mist of May is in the gloaming, and all the stars are running still. It's this lovely and extremely corny song. And the bit would start with me asking Eddie to sing it. And he's like, I don't want to sing that. You called it a fembag song. That's what you called it. And the act, I don't want to sing that. So finally, of course, I make him sing it, because if he doesn't sing it, he's not going to get any further in the act. And so he starts to sing the song, and with his voice, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And I start to cry. And I'm weeping my eyes out.
And ruin the song because she'd start to cry.
Well, and so Eddie, finally, with all the weeping and sobbing, Eddie has to stop, and he says, Ruth, this is a comedy show. What are you crying about? And I said, because someday you're going to die, and I don't know what I'm going to do. Uh-huh. And you could hear a pin drop in the audience. It was shocking.
Right. I can imagine, like, going from this comedy and music to crying and then a statement like that.
Also, the audience just goes, it was risky. The audience just goes stone, right? And Eddie says, we start talking about it. And then what happens is I make him promise, because I don't know what I'm going to do if he dies, I make him promise that I can die first. And I make him promise, and it's a big deal. And he said, I don't know if you could die. I know you have to. Finally, he promises that I can die first. Then we go into what kind of funeral I want. And I describe, and it's with, and he has to make all these promises he has to make about it. So it's like, I want, I want bagpipes, and I want this, and I want that, and I want all these and I wanted certain guests to be there that were famous at the time, that were improbable, all these other things. And, finally, and these promises, everything. And by now, of course, the audience is back to laughing because now it's getting silly. And finally, and then the bit takes a left turn, and I ask him, how soon after I die is he going to start dating? And he says, I don't know, about a year. And I flip out. A year? I'm not even cold in the grave. A year? She's sort of clinging to my tombstone and crying and all this other bit. And we go on and on and on. And then I start to ask him who he is going to date among my friends. And then that goes.
Would you answer that question?
And that goes into, he won't answer it. He refuses to answer it. But I go through this litany of my friends, Carol, Barbara, my sister, Helen, you pig. And, that's where it goes. And so it culminates in, we decide that he can die first.
Yes. So,
okay.
After all that.
You die first. And for its time, this was like in what? 1993. 1993. This was breakthrough stuff, it was really different. And while it was great, and while people thought it was great, we never did have the right, venue or the right management or anything. But in an odd way, Nicholas, we were happy because we had solved the puzzle. We had solved the creative puzzle. Now, of course, that we're old, we should probably go back and do this again. Because
I'd love to see it.
not the same material, because it wouldn't be the same.
No, but
I think one of the things that was a situation for us when we were a comedy team was we were too young and attractive. You know what I mean? And
comedians should be funny looking.
Comedians should be a little funny looking, and we weren't. We looked like we played Dangerfields, and Rodney Dangerfield came up to me and said, "Oh, you're the singer." Because it was like, what else would I be?
And I said, no, we're a comedy team. He said, better. Couldn't you do any better being a comedy team? Thank you. Thanks for that boost.
And we ran into so many people that became famous. So we did a gig with Eddie Murphy at a Chinese restaurant when he was first starting out.
Wow.
It goes on and on.
Louis Black.
Louis Black.
Oh, love Louis.
Black. He didn't really hate us, but he was the MC at this club we used to play every Saturday night, and he pretend hated us because we were so fucking cute, as he said.
Right. I can picture that in his Here
comes a young couple that's so fucking cute, And he didn't really have his angry act yet, so this was whatever.
Yeah, he didn't have
full on Louis.
We worked with Susie Essman. We got a lot of work. We also got a lot of work because we had a car.
Yeah.
So they were going to do a gig with 3 comedians, and most of them were in the city, and we had a car. So we got a lot of gigs because we drove people.
Yeah.
Honest to God.
The advice I would give young people starting out is make sure you have good tires.
Make sure you have good tires.
So the first key to a successful career to break in, tires.
Gotta have good.
Excellent. And I just wanted to touch a couple of other things real quick too. Now, Ruth.
Yes, sir.
I know. Being that we're both Francos. Yeah. I know you're brothers and your dad and your grandfather were instrumental.
Who is also your grandfather, I might
Yes, yes, who is my grandfather as well. But they were the ones that actually built Lake Tapan.
Yes. What happened was, and this is back in like the late, like maybe 59, 60, it's going back a long time, that there was I guess a bond or something put out because the Bergen County area and the surrounding area, and it was the Hackensack Water Company actually.
Yes.
And they were running out of water for this blowing up population, where we're building houses for baby boomers and everything else. And so they, purchased the land that currently now is the Tapan Lake. And they had and our grandfather, our Nick Franco,
Yes.
got his sons together. And my dad had in World War II had been a CB, so
Yes.
that's the guys who know how to run heavy equipment and bulldozing and all that other stuff. So my dad had skills, and my grandfather put in a bid with the Hackensack Water Company, and they won the bid. This was amazing. I mean, talk about David Goliath. You know what I mean? And also remember, all of the excavation contractors were Goombas. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like, and, so it was like amazing that they won the bid and stayed alive,
Right.
But they won the bid, and it was a 10-year contract. And the way that, because it would take that long to excavate something the size of Tapan Lake, right? And the way they made their living, it wasn't like a fee for digging. You know what I mean? It was that they got to sell
The topsoil.
The topsoil, fill dirt, sand, gravel, every layer.
Oh, wow.
So they also, they dug out what is now Tapan Lake, and they also provided topsoil for most of the lawns in northern Bergen County, the gravel and sand for most of the roads that were built during that period of time. And it's a crazy thing. And yet at the time, Nick, I didn't think anything of it. It was the pit.
Yeah, yeah. I remember always hearing that, thing. Yeah, Uncle Howard and, they're all at the pit. The pit.
They're at the pit,
Yeah.
And I never thought a thing of it. And then eventually, when not long, but a few years after the contract was over, they finally fill the lake, and it becomes Tapan Lake. And it wasn't until many years later, driving across the lake, that it occurred to me to be proud of it. That it occurred to me that it was part of my family history, and that it was something to be proud of. Up until, and I'm now, by the time I get to that point, I'm in my 40s or so. You know what I mean? Like, it hadn't actually occurred to me that this was some, like a major public works that my family was instrumental in creating, and your family was instrumental in creating, and Pop-Up and the brothers and others. There was quite a cast of characters.
Yeah.
Like there were some really interesting folks who worked with them.
Well, I remember also the Dirkleys, Derek Old. They worked with us as well. Did you remember them? Derek Hall. They were the ones that had the farm up in the nursery farm thing up in Norwood.
Yes. Oh, they were there too. They
I think when Frank was, going through police academy, like he was also working with us.
Oh, they hired all kinds of cops.
Yeah.
Hired all kinds of cops because that meant they got treated right in terms of, they didn't get arrested for whatever laws they were breaking about carding things and stuff. I mean, it wasn't actually bribery or anything.
No.
They weren't like mafia guys or anything. They were just, blue collar workers. They weren't anything like that. But, you had to, pay your pound of flesh for all sorts of things, easements and this and that. One time, my mother told me, not that long before she passed, my mother told me that there was some guy that they had to go to his house in Nyack,
Okay.
and his wife, and she had to buy a painting from his wife for an X dollar amount of money,
Oh wow.
like the payoff for whatever.
That was the deal. Like
Yeah,
the
whatever thing it was. And she said this woman had these god awful paintings. They were so ugly, but it didn't matter. And she just had to pretend to be delighted with one of them. And, I mean, it was crazy. These local municipal works and things like that. Such funny stories. But as a little girl, because this happened when I was a little girl in the initial days,
yeah.
my memories of it were getting in this big,
That's our dogs.
yeah, our dogs.
Okay.
Our dogs have decided to join the act. That they getting in this, typical, 1950s, early 60s, Ford station wagon, with all 5 children piled in, and driving over to the pit to bring lunch, to bring Daddy his lunch and things like. It's very Fred Flintstone. People would ask me, what my father did for a living, and I would just say Fred Flintstone. But Pop-Up meaning our mutual grandfather. Was, my father was a guy who really understood geology and the topography and how to run heavy equipment. Pop-Up was more of the person who made friends and had friends in the government, and like he was more the guy that like who could make the deal happen.
Yeah.
Because he had these Hackensack Water Company guys were probably guys that he went. Yeah, you're excused from the show, Ed. Probably guys that he knew from back in the day. During the Depression and this and that. And he was more I wouldn't say diplomat, but he was like a pretty smooth salesman, which is not how we knew him at all.
Mm-hmm.
We knew him as a gruff kind of a grandfather, get an education, read a book, and all this other business. But he was among those guys, he was Mr. Nice, and when he died, I will not ever forget. First of all, I'll never forget some of the Rococo floral arrangements that were sent. Like there was literally a floral bulldozer.
Oh, wow.
With a little man sitting. Oh, yeah. We're talking downtown Italian. You know what I mean? This was serious. There had to be no fewer than, I'm going to go with 8 flower cars. Maybe 9.
That's amazing.
Huge. It was an affair of
wow.
state. It was an affair. But the best part was in Holy Trinity Church during the funeral mass, down the center aisle comes this guy who, for all the world, looks like, in The Godfather, when they go back to Italy and there's the Fanucci guy with the white hat and the white. Mm-hmm. This guy was like that. Walks in the middle of the mass, walks down the center of the aisle, walks up to Nana, our mutual grandmother, walks up to Nana, gives her the sympathy, very showy, show of sympathy, and walks out of the church. And afterward, we find out he's some kind of kingpin, but that Pop-Up, that he respected Pop-Up and he was paying respects to him because Pop-Up drove, quite frankly, like a getaway car for him in the 1920s. Pop-Up was a taxi driver.
Yeah, no, I remember. My mother said, like, when he was a taxi driver, he actually took extra work. Actually, like from back then, during Prohibition and such, like some of the picking up some of the bodies, because
he also ran a crack game. He
ran the local game.
I mean, he ran a genuine crack game down by the Hackensack River, and there was an episode of The Sopranos where Tony Soprano and the head of the New York mob or something are in
Of
some
of, of,
kind of meeting,
of Phil Leotardo.
and they catch the New York guy, and Tony gets away and has to swim, swim across some body of water to get to his house. And the episode ends with Carmela yelling at him for getting water on the rug. Well, as it happens, that actually happened to Pop-Pop and our grandmother Nana. Pop-Pop had to swim across the Hackensack River, get away from the police who were breaking up the crap game, and literally dripping water through Nana's house. I was like, when I saw the episode when it first ran, I was like, I don't know who on this show knows my grandparents. I don't know who.
Oh, that's what I never heard that story.
Isn't it great? Isn't it great? I heard, it's very funny when you talk to your relatives, isn't it, Nick? And it's
Yes.
It's so fun to talk to you tonight, by the way.
I'm so glad that you were on with me tonight, and that we could talk about you guys meeting, your career. This was awesome. Before we leave, we like to play a quick game usually on our pod, like to end things off, and we call it Jersey Not Jersey. I'm going to give you some entertainers, and you're going to tell me whether they're from Jersey or not from New Jersey.
Okay.
Okay. Roy Scheider.
Jersey.
Yeah. Orange, New Jersey. He was an amateur boxer, 8-1 in the state.
Wow. I didn't know about the boxing part. But...
what about his partner in crime in Jaws, Richard Dreyfuss?
Not Jersey.
Not Jersey.
No. Richard was born in Brooklyn.
That's not Jersey.
Yeah.
Like you were right.
He's saying
you're 2 for 2.
He needs a lot of remedial help.
It's okay. How about of more recent actors? Paul Rudd.
I don't know.
Let's say Jersey.
Yep. Paul Rudd was actually born in Passaic.
I'll be darned.
And somehow along the way he also found the fountain of youth because he doesn't age. How about
finish his bit? He's wrapping up. You got to let him go. Go
Oh
ahead.
yeah, I'm just going to do a couple more.
All right.
Okay. How about Eva Marie Saint?
I think she is Jersey.
She's from Newark, New Jersey.
Newark? Wow.
Yeah.
So far, we're 100%.
Yeah. Yep. You guys are right on the right on the button. How about Frankie Avalon?
Was he from Philly?
No, he's from. I thought he was from Philly.
You're right. He's from Philadelphia.
Yeah. Okay.
How about we go to another Frankie, and we'll just hit one last point too. Frankie Valli.
Oh.
And why do you know that, Ed?
Do I know that? Because I was actually called in to be when I was younger, I used to actually look like Frankie Valli, and I was called in several years ago to be his stand-in in a movie.
Oh, wow.
But in addition to that, Eddie's sister Carol dated Frankie Valli. Well, it was important to me.
I'm only interested in what I do.
Because when I first met Eddie's sisters, I thought they were the coolest in the world. Because Carol had dated Frankie Valli, and his sister Isabel was currently dating Nick Arnone from the Duprees.
Oh.
They were... I mean, long before the movie with what's her name playing the groupie and everything, these girls were plugged in.
Wow. That's and you guys got 100% on the Jersey Not Jersey.
And we're still, and here we are in our dotage, still in New Jersey.
Yes, and welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Now, if guys if people want to, Ed, you still singing?
Yes,
and perform, right?
Sing, yes.
Is there some place that they can find your list of upcoming performances?
Yeah, and they can also catch a demo at a website called Gig Masters. And
Gig
just
Masters.
put my name in there, and then my video will come up.
Excellent. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add, or?
I just think that this is the greatest thing that you do this, Nick. And
Oh, thank you.
you know, and it's so much fun to have done this with you. And you made us think a lot because we went through a little exercise of how many Jersey things are in our background to begin with, you know. So it was so much, you know. No, I don't have anything. Do I have anything more to add? You would know.
You always have some more to add.
Well, I want to thank you both, though, for being on our pod. And for those listening, if you enjoy the pod, please like and subscribe. And please, you know, catch Ed. When he's singing. And like you said, Gig Masters is the place to look it up.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And Gig Salad is another site I'm on.
Gig Salad. Excellent. Yeah. And look for Ed Ayres, Ayres.
That's right.
And is it also Smooth Edward, or because I remember
yes, that's just a name that I made up for myself because I was participating in a stand-up comedy contest when I lived up in Connecticut.
Oh, okay.
And the MC thought that my material was she said, "You're so dignified." So I made up this name, Smooth Edward, to
excellent.
An alternative character.
Always reinventing.
always. Otherwise, I get bored.
But again, thank you guys. And
you.
Wait. Tracy actually says, "Hi, Ruth and Eddie. Great to hear your story."
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Bye, Tracy.
And for What Exit Jersey Stories, I've been Nick Franco, and our guests have been
Ruth
and
Ed Ayres. Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.
Bye-bye.